Hi everyone, in today's video I'm going to introduce you a tutorial of the word counting workflow example in the DATAVIEW system. So here is an outline I'm going to stick with to go through the example today. There are 6 steps I'm going to go through. Firstly, I'm going to show you the visualization of the workflow, and based on that visualization I will explain the overall structure. So here is a visualization. As you can see, this workflow only have one input and one output. Of course, you are able to specify multiple inputs and multiple outputs for any workflow in the data view, but for simplification, we only have one input and one output for this case. And inside the workflow, we have 3 stages. For stage 1, we have one task called the file splitter, and for this task, it is responsible to split the input data into multiple branches. As you can see here, we have 2 branches of the partial data splitted or distributed. And for the next stage, we have 2 tasks, both named the word count. They are same task but different instance. So that means they are going to count different partial data in parallel. And for the stage 3, we're going to have the word count aggregation task, which is going to be responsible to aggregate the partial count into the total count. And finally, we're going to write the output data into a TXT file. And for the next step, I'm going to explain each task. As you can see from the visualization, we have 3 types of the tasks in this workflow. The first one is a file splitter, the second one is a word count, and third one is a word count aggregation. So let's go back to the Eclipse. And for the file splitter, as you may recall, we have a tutorial in the DataView channel to explain how to create a task in DataView. And basically, here is a general way you can create a task, which is called file splitter. We're going to extend the task class, and for the constructor, we're going to have the file name specified for this task. We also specify the input ports and output ports. Here we have one input ports because we have only one input data, but for the output ports we will have k output ports specified because we will have k branches output from this task. So after we done that, we have the helper method, which is going to help us to count how many lines we have in a file. And here is a commit of every task, which is a run method, and this run method will basically have 3 steps to do. For step 1, we are going to read input data from the input ports. So here is the line we're going to get a file name, and then we will read the data from that file. And step 2, we are going to process the data. For this file splitter, we are going to process the data by splitting them evenly into multiple branches. And here is the k branches we're going to have. So that means we're going to split the data into k partial branches. And for the third step, we're going to write those output data into output files. So you can see from here, we're going to get a file name from the output port, and then we're going to write those data into those files. And here is basically the file splitter task. We're going to look at the next task, which is called the word count. The word count is similarly, we have the function constructor. We are going to specify the input ports. Here we have one input port, and we also specify the output port. We only have one output port. So here is a constructor, and again in a run method, which is a commit, we have 3 steps to do. The first one is we're going to read the input data from the input ports. So here is a way we get a file name from the input ports, and then we read that data. After we done that, we do the second step, is processing the data. And here we specify a hash map because we want to count how many times each words appear in the file. So we are going to use a key value pair hash map to store the data. So here is a part how we count the words one by one, and after we done that, we are going to write the output data into the output file. Here is a line we're going to get a file name from the output ports, and then we're going to write the data to those output port files. And next, we're going to explain the word count aggregation task. After we do the word count on different partial data, we're going to aggregate those partial counts into the total counts. So here is how we do that. And this task is also extend the task class. We also have the function constructor. We're going to specify the name of the task, as well as we'll specify how many input ports we have, how many output ports we have. For this task, we have k input ports, so that means there are k branches join into this task, and we only have one output port, of course, because we only have one aggregated total counts, right? So here is a run method. We do the similar thing. We have 3 steps to do. The first one is we're going to read the data from the input ports. So here is a line we're going to read. We use a read method to read the data from that input ports, and also we get the data from the input ports, and then we also initialize a hash map in this task because we want to do the aggregation with the key value pairs, and then we will do the aggregation from different files. And next steps is we're going to write the data into the output ports. So that's a step 3. We're going to write that into the output file. So this is 3 tasks we are talking about in this workflow. And next step, I'm going to introduce the overall workflow, how we can assemble this task together into an overall workflow. So this is step 4. Let's get back to the Eclipse. So here is wordCount workflow.java, and this file is basically very simple. And we only have 2 parts, and first part is a function constructor. We also extend another class called the workflow. We have to specify the name of the workflow we have, and we specify how many input ports, how many output ports. For this workflow, we only have 1 input. For outputs, we only have 1 as well. And also we specify what is a file name for the input and what is output file name as well. And for the next step, we're going to have this design method, and in the design method we also have 2 parts. For the first part, we're going to add different tasks. So as you can see from here, we have 2 ways to add tasks. We either can add tasks by using the add task method, or we can use multiple tasks together by using the add tasks method. So here is a way you can efficiently add multiple tasks at the same time. And here we are assuming that for each task we only have 1 input port and 1 output port. So that means we don't have to specify the port number for each task. So this is a way to simplify the work. And also we add another task of the word count aggregation as well. And for the next part, we're going to add edges between these tasks. So you can see from here, so here is from input port 0, and you want to connect to the stage 1, and then output port of this task. And as well, you have the split pattern. So basically you have 2 ways to add edges. Either way, you can add edges one by one from task to task, or you can add edges in 1 to multiple or multiple to 1 pattern. So here is a way when you want to add edges in an efficient way. So you can add edges in a split pattern. That means you're going to add edges from one task to another k tasks. And also similarly, you have the join pattern to add edges. So you can add edges from k branches from stage 2 to 1 task in the stage 3. So that means you're going to add multiple edges at the same time. And lastly, we're going to add edges from the stage 3 to the output port. So here is stages. Maybe you can rename them as a task, maybe make more sense. So here is how you can write that. So let's get back to the outline. After we introduce a code for the workflow, I will prepare to run the workflow. So basically, as we introduced in other videos, the main entry of the DataView system is this task.java. So when you run in Eclipse, this is a main entry file you will find and to run the workflow. So firstly, in the test class, what we will specify is what kind of workflow you're going to run. So firstly, we're going to visualize the workflow we're going to do. So we specify a visualization frame. And here is the workflow we're going to run today, which is called wordCount workflow. And next, we're going to specify what kind of planner we're going to use. For this one, we're going to specify the naive one. That means we're going to run the whole workflow in one machine. And next, we're going to specify what kind of executor we're going to use. For the executor beta, which is going to run on Amazon EC2, but we don't want to worry about that in this video. Maybe we will record another video to do that. But for here, we're going to run on a local machine, so that means you can run on your local. So here is a workflow executor we specify, and after that, we're going to run or execute the workflow. So this is a structure of the test.java. So if we run that, we will see, maybe you will see some warning, but that's okay, just proceed. And then you will be able to see the workflow is going to be run successfully. So here is a book.txt. Data will flow through 3 stages and then will output the data into a txt file. So if you refresh the working directory of the whole project, as you can recall, the working directory is called workflow test.dir. So if you refresh this one, and you will see different files generated in this repository. So here is a final output we're going to get from this workflow, because you can see for every word we're going to count how many times it appears in the original file in a divide and conquer manner by splitting the data into multiple branches, and we're going to count them in parallel. So here is a workflow we're introducing today. And besides that, I think for the DATAVIEW 2.2, maybe you don't have this book.txt input file. If you want to try this workflow, I will attach this file under the video, and feel free to download and you can try it out on your own. So I think that's pretty much for this video, and thank you so much for your time. Hope you enjoy. Until next time, happy coding.